Welcome in, everybody, to another episode, another show here for Clutch Scoops. As usual, Tomer Azarly here with Brett Siegel.
We got to start with the biggest headline today, Tomer, which is Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham being eligible for All NBA, MVP, and every single award that is out there.
Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham now eligible for All NBA awards, end of season awards like MVP, like All NBA teams. I guess they both finished with 64 games. I think Luka obviously missed 2 games due to the birth of his daughter. I believe it was in December. He also missed a game due to suspension due to picking up his 16th technical foul, which was a little bit more on him than anything out of his control. And Cade Cunningham, I would say, things a little bit more out of his control. He had a great season, relatively healthy until the end there, where he suffered the collapsed lung and just fell 1 game short. He returned for the final couple games of the year, but did fall 1 game short of the end of season award eligibility. But hey, they are now eligible, and NBA awards are still allowed to be voted on now through tomorrow night, which is an interesting twist as well, because you do have the play-in week to kind of affect your thoughts a little bit. But before we get into that, I want to talk about get your take on just the independent arbitrator allowing, making an exception to the 65 game rule, which in a sense kind of makes the 65 game rule pointless.
I have a lot of thoughts on pretty much everything that has to deal with the 65 game rule. First of all, it was implemented to make sure guys played 65 games to be eligible for awards, and that's what it's been over the last few years. That's why Victor Wembanyama was not Defensive Player of the Year last year. Granted, he played in significantly fewer games. I think it was like 48, but he had a blood clot in his shoulder, which, in my opinion, is a very good reason not to be playing, just like Cade Cunningham's collapsed lung, just like Luka Doncic missing games for the birth of his kid. So this is what I want to say about it, Tomer, and I want to play a little bit of devil's advocate as well, because Luka Doncic, yes, those 2 games that he missed for the birth of his kid, that is an extraordinary circumstance. That should be allowed. It's in quote unquote paternity leave in the NBA for a professional athlete, and that should be allowed to miss games for that. But Luka Doncic was suspended a game for receiving, I think it was 16 or 17 technical fouls, whatever the limit is. He missed games for injury management. Same thing for Cade Cunningham. He missed games throughout the year for injury management. He fell short of the 65 games. So if you're going to allow them to get this exception, that's fine. I have no problem with it. These guys are top 5 players in the league this year. They should be eligible for MVP voting. They should be eligible for All-NBA. But why isn't Anthony Edwards eligible? Because he's the same situation where he had an injury, and it was a real injury. He had an infection, I believe. It was in his knee. And so why is he not eligible for these awards when you're going to give one to Cade Cunningham, basically saying that, oh, well, his injury is more significant than Anthony Edwards? So is that the game that we're going to be playing now every season in the NBA, of we're going to be determining who can actually play and who can't? To me, an injury is an injury. And if you're injured, you should be able to apply for this exception, and you should be granted it if you're going to do it for these same other guys. Because to me, it just feels like that the goalposts were moved here, Tomer, to get Luka and Cade eligible because they were going to be first-team All-NBA. They were going to be in the MVP race. It's not the same for guys like Anthony Edwards or Devin Booker.
Anthony Edwards also filed a challenge to, have his case be reviewed by an arbitrator, independent arbitrator, and his case was denied, and he's not eligible for All NBA awards. Which, like you said, just brings up the question: what is the point of the 65 game rule at this point? Because if you're picking and choosing who is eligible based on what circumstance, I don't really understand the point here. Like, it's not like Edwards is less important to his team than Cade. It's not like his injury was more in his control or he missed time due to something in his control. It's completely out of their control. And so I really don't understand that. I think the 65 game rule was initially introduced to curb some of the quote unquote load management. Guys are still missing games. It's not like there's a lot of load management. I think people are finding out that guys are actually missing games due to injury. They're not just sitting out because they don't feel like playing. And I think the poster child for that was Kawhi Leonard, a guy who had dealt with repeated knee injuries, lower body, leg injuries. He was kind of the face of that 65 game rule. People saying he was load management. He didn't want to play. Well, that guy's eligible for All NBA awards. He played 65 games this year. He, despite missing 10 with an ankle sprain and a couple others, he's eligible. And so I think this rule you're really seeing this year, that guys are actually injured. There's no one just sitting out because they don't feel like playing. And so going out here and making an exception to, not to signal anyone out, but like making exceptions to some guys and not others just doesn't seem fair. It seems pointless, and it seems like it's just opening up a can of worms that will just get worse down the line. So I'm kind of with you. I can't wait to see the 65 game rule abolished. Maybe change it to more of a minutes rule. Because I think I saw a stat the other day that some of the top three guys before this were not eligible. I think it was Cade, Edwards, and Luka. But Victor Wembanyama, who played about 400 minutes fewer at about 1,800, is eligible. And so it's not a shot at Wemby. Wemby played his games. He's eligible. He played a lot. He's fantastic. But there's no reason any of those guys should have been ineligible. It's just ridiculous that it was even a thing.
If you're going to have the rule, enforce it. You said 65 games. That is the limit. So why are we going to say now, oh, you were one short of the award? You know what? We're going to give you an exception this year. And Luka, you missed. We don't want you missing the birth of your kids. And I know that you were suspended a game for yelling at our officials 17 times, but we're going to grant you the exception here. Cade, you had a collapse along. If you played in one more game, just one more game, buddy, you would have made the 65 game minimum. We're going to give you an exception. Fine. I'm cool with that. I'm fine giving them those exceptions. But you have to do the same thing then for Anthony Edwards. You have to do the same thing for a guy like Devin Booker. And quite honestly, you have to do the same thing for guys like Joel Embiid and Stephen Curry. And I know that they missed over 2/3 of the season, but when they were on the court, they were top 10 players in the league this year. There's nothing that you can say to argue that. They are the best of the best in this league, and they miss games because of serious, legitimate injuries. So why are you going to make the exception for one guy that was one game off of the 65 game minimum, and you're not going to do it for the rest of the league? That's where I'm at with this. That's why I think that if you are going to keep the 65 game minimum in place, there needs to be a minutes minimum, and there also needs to be something for all NBA third team where that is just completely not involved in the 65 game minimum at all, and you can just put the 5 guys that faced injuries there, because it's not fair for some of these guys like Anthony Edwards, for example, to be left off the list. And now because you're making Cade and Luka eligible when they shouldn't be based on the rules, now a guy like Jalen Duren, who could potentially make all NBA third team, he may be off the list entirely now, and that's going to affect his pocket. You're talking 40, 45, 50 million dollars that he may not make now. So the whole awards voting, the whole process is just skewed, Tomer. The media should not be dictating who gets money and who doesn't in this league, because everybody has relationships. I have relationships with players and agents. You have relationships with players and agents. All the voters do as well. So everything is skewed, and when you bring bias into it and now you're making these exceptions, it just adds more noise to all this skewed nonsense.
Well, I mean, I will say you brought up a good point in Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker, you mentioned, played 64 games. I know the Suns are the 7th seed. And I don't know if he was going to win any NBA awards. He wasn't probably going to be a third team selection. But again, if you're making an exception for one, you have to make it for all. That's how I view it. I agree with you 100%. Another little rant. I'm gonna go on a little rant myself. I saw someone mention today that because usually voting is due by Sunday, the end of the regular season, and so voters have been given an extra 5 days here, with some play-in action to watch. And some teams playing once, some teams playing twice, and they essentially admitted that this play-in week would impact their voting, and I just can't fathom how that's even a thing. As an impartial, unbiased voter voting on a regular season award, I can't understand why you would factor in the play-in tournament. I really don't understand that. And if someone loses out on an award because they had maybe a bit of a stinker in their first play-in, first playoff type game, high intensity win or go home type game, well, that's bullshit. Because you shouldn't be voting based off that. You got to vote off the regular season. No matter who wins. I think no matter who wins these awards, they're all, highly talented, all deserving. But to say that play-in is going to impact your voting is just BS. It's not right to me. I don't like that. It shouldn't have any inkling of a factor whatsoever. It's a regular season award. It should stick to that. And I don't care that they gave 5 more days to vote. It's ridiculous.
I really hope that the league does look at the feedback, not just from the fans, but they also take into account some of these media members that are saying that they will take the playing games into account, because the rules are it is 82 game regular season. And if you're going to factor in one of those games, you should no longer be allowed to vote, especially because, like we mentioned, it impacts these guys' livelihood and it impacts future contracts.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Duren would have been eligible for a supermax contract. Not saying that he won't get it or he's not deserving because Cade is, but like that's a big change. And so rookie of the year I think is another one you look at. Con Knipple struggled in that playing game, his first real high intensity playoff game. Well, shit, the awards the voting is due tomorrow before the game. If Con comes out and drops a 40 bomb, then what? Is he suddenly? Are you going to retract that? Are you going to say, wait, I should have changed my mind? Like, what are we doing here? It's a regular season award.
And why
Leave it
is
at
one
that.
game dictating it? It's an 82 game season. One game should not be the difference in you deciding between these awards unless it's MVP and the Thunder and the Spurs were tied going into the final game of the regular season against each other, and you wanted to decide then
Right.
between Shea and Wemby. That's fine. But to say that you're going to make the Rookie of the Year race or the Most Improved race, whatever, based on one game, and it's a game that isn't even supposed to qualify, that's nonsense, and you have no right voting then.
Got me all worked up now. Now I'm mad.
Well, you know who is mad? Bam Adebayo's mad because he got taken out of the game against the Hornets due to all the shenanigans dealing with LaMelo Ball.
The Hornets obviously won their playing game against the Miami Heat, but not without some pretty controversial, one very controversial play there. LaMelo Ball with about, I think, 11 minutes left in the second quarter. I want to say appeared to grab, but it's very clear that he just grabbed his ankle and pulled him down. Pulled Bam Adebayo down. Bam landed hard on his back. Left the game, was initially questionable to return, but did not return. And I mean, Miami was forced to play a do or die game without their best player. I don't care how you want to, talk about that. That's a really, really difficult task when you prepare to have a certain guy, not just a certain guy, your best player, your best defender, and you don't have that guy against a team that's been as hot as Charlotte has been. So, Bam did not return. Charlotte was able to win that game in overtime. That was a fantastic display of shot making by both teams. Tyler Hero with some big clutch shots in overtime. Kobe White with some heroics in regulation. But ultimately, LaMelo Ball hit the game winner, the game winning layup. But the NBA did fine him. They didn't suspend him for the playing game on Friday, but they did fine him $60,000 and assess him a flagrant 2 foul, which I'm curious how the flagrant foul points accumulate in a playing scenario which doesn't count for anything stat-wise. But that's a different story. Brett, what was your take on just what we saw with that game, with the injury, with the subsequent punishment, and just overall what we saw in the last couple of days there?
So I'm not as furious as you are with the LaMelo Ball trip. And yes, he did grab him. I'm not going to deny that. He grabbed his ankle, grabbed his leg, and it caused Bam to fall. But I also want to look at this from the other side here, where you're a 6'3", 6'4" guard on the ground, and you have a 7-foot, 250 guy about to fall on you. You get kneed in the back of the head twice, and your arms are already behind you. Your first instinct is going to be to try to brace yourself and try to grab the guy so he doesn't fall on you. So that little bit of it, I'm going to give LaMelo a little bit benefit of the doubt there. Obviously, though, when you watch it, he was looking at Bam and he grabbed him.
I need everyone to know that Brett is the guy who, when you say you want to play pickup, he's like, I got 6 fouls to give. I just want you to know that he's that guy.
I love Grayson Allen, Duke basketball, one of my favorite college players of all time.
That explains so much. But I mean, look, I don't agree with you. I don't know how you can spin it that way. I think LaMelo knew it, and it's not his first time doing it. He did it to Bam, I think, a year ago in Miami. There's another video of him grabbing at Bam Adebayo with fewer people around. He just swung out and just tripped Bam Adebayo. So unfortunate ending for Bam. I mean, he said today when he spoke to members of the media that he has not spoken to LaMelo. That apology or that conversation has not happened yet, but they look forward to it happening. He looks forward to it happening. I think Bam mentioned that he is part of the the draft class that Lonzo Ball was in. So there's a bit of a relationship there, maybe not much, but a bit of a relationship with that family. So, I'm a terrible situation for Miami. I feel bad for them, but I will say Charlotte I think has been probably the most fun, if not top 3 fun teams to watch this season, but especially second half of the year. And so the addition of Kobe White for essentially not much. I know Colin Sexton was on his way out, but Kobe White's an elite shot maker, a scorer that has given the Charlotte bench a big boost here. And so I'm very much looking forward to see what Charlotte can do in their second playing game against the against the Magic. We'll preview that a little bit later on. But anything else to touch on here with this LaMelo incident before we move on?
Yeah, I do want to bring up Tim Reynolds' report from the AP. He said that LaMelo tried to reach out to Bam after the game, tried to approach him, and Bam was in the shower. So I don't know what happened there, why Bam didn't then try to reach out to LaMelo, or the teams didn't try to reach out to each other, whatever the case may be. But I am kind of tired of seeing all this complaining. It's been a few days now. Get over it. You lost the game. Bam Adebayo being out, obviously, yes, it factors into the game. It's one of the main reasons why the Heat were not as successful down the stretch of that game. But him being out of that game isn't the reason why they gave up those threes to Kobe White. Bam Adebayo being out of the game is not the reason why LaMelo Ball drove right past your defense for a wide open layup. Bam Adebayo being out of the game is not the reason why you chose, with 4 seconds left, to drive against 2 guys known to be shot blockers at the rim and get the ball absolutely stuffed, and then you lose the game. So that's just the argument I'm going to make, Tomer. It's not one player being out, oh, that's the game, it changes everything. No, the team could have adjusted. They had a whole half to. They made adjustments. They played well at times.
That's your all-defensive
but down the stretch,
player. That's your
fine.
all-defensive player.
He's not the one
He's
guarding LaMelo Ball to the rim.
He's the one guarding the rim.
Not when your 5 is out on the perimeter. That's all I'm going to say about it. I don't think that Bam Adebayo being out specifically is like, oh, the game's completely over if we don't have Bam. The Heat were leading that game in the fourth quarter, and they had a chance to win it, and they did.
They did. You're right about that. They did. I think both teams had chances to close out and didn't. LaMelo obviously hit a big shot there. But Bam definitely changes the complexion of that game. I don't think we have to pretend like it doesn't.
I'm not saying he doesn't, but I'm not saying that is the reason why they lost this game. There are a ton of other factors and a ton of other plays that go into it that you can pinpoint. Sure. You could do a whole film breakdown about it of, oh, there was a misrotation there and a misrotation here that led to easy layups. So it's not as easy as saying, oh, Bam Adebayo out of the game, it's over for the Heat. They had no chance. That's just not true.
No, you're right about that. I do want to move on because we do have some more playing stuff to talk about. The first 2 teams who have advanced, winners of the 7-8 game, that is in the Western Conference, the Portland Trail Blazers defeating the Phoenix Suns on the road, no less, in surprising fashion, and the Philadelphia 76ers holding on to beat the Orlando Magic in their 7-8 game, advancing to face the Boston Celtics. I want to start with the Portland Trail Blazers first. This is a team that was down 13 points with about 7 minutes left. I think they were down 11 with about 6 left. They had a couple of backbreaking plays in that fourth quarter that you just felt like, oh, that's the nail in the coffin. This is game. And then Drew Holiday hit a couple of big shots. Jeremy Grant had a couple of big shots, one big block I remember. And Denny Avdia just decided to put his head down and absolutely take over that game. Finished with 41 points, 8 rebounds, and 12 assists. 8 rebounds or 7 rebounds, one of those two. I think if you someone looked it up. I think if you look at that from a playoff perspective, I think it's only been done by like 12 other players or 12 other instances. So that line is obviously incredible. Doesn't count for anything playoff-wise, but an incredible line. What did you make of Portland's win? Before we go on to Philly, what did you make of Portland's big win over Phoenix there?
Yeah, it was the 2 names that you mentioned, Drew Holiday and Jeremy Grant down the stretch. I thought were fantastic, especially Drew Holiday, and it just goes back to his championship pedigree. He's won a championship with the Bucks. He won one with the Celtics, and he's just a guy that understands his role in this league and can play virtually any role that you want him to be. So I think that he's the perfect fit when healthy for that Portland team, and we're seeing that. And it's one of the reasons why they wanted to go out and get him next to Denny Avdia. So I think that was a fantastic win by Portland. Obviously, when you look ahead to their matchup against the Spurs, thanks for coming, Portland. I think it's going to be a clean sweep for the Spurs. But in terms of matchup, I think that they actually do match up pretty well with the Spurs. I think that they have the size, they have the defensive versatility, and I think that they're going to cause some headaches for the Spurs. And I think that they will have leads on them in this series. But I just find it hard to believe that this won't be a sweep or at most 5 games.
Yeah, I'm going to counter that. I actually think I don't think Portland's going to win this series, but I do think they can win a couple games because I feel like they have some pretty. Not that San Antonio doesn't, but they have some veterans on their team, underrated veterans. I think Jeremy Grant, now that he's healthy, is a big addition for them. Drew Holiday, we've seen what he does in the playoffs. He's an absolute winner, does whatever it takes on both ends of the floor. Getting Shaedon Sharpe back was really good for them. I think he's still finding his footing, but an elite scorer. Scoot Henderson has really found his way in this Blazers rotation. Donovan Clingan has been fantastic for them. He's now spacing the floor out significantly and being able to hit shots consistently. And then you have Avdia, who's basically a point guard at 6'9", fighting through traffic the entire time. Going up against Wembanyama is going to be a challenge. De'Aaron Fox, we know what he can do. I think this is the first playoff opportunity for a lot of their core in Dylan Harper and Steph Castle and Wembanyama. So it's not like the moment will be too big for them. I think they'll ultimately come out on top. I would say in 6, but I'm very excited for that matchup because I think of all the teams who could have matched up with San Antonio between the Blazers, Suns, Warriors, and Clippers, this is probably the most entertaining matchup. You remember the comments Wemby had about Avdi at All Star, where he's like he draws a lot of fouls. This is also, I believe, a Scoot versus a Wemby matchup here with their previous history together, playing I think with the Ignite and the Metropolitan '92. So there's some history here. There's some fun history, and Tiago Splitter got his big start with San Antonio. He was part of those finals runs that they had back in 2013 and 14. So like there's some fun history here. And very much looking forward to this series. I think it'll be fun. I think Spurs will probably win in about 6, but I think Blazers will give them more of a run for their money than people think.
I just don't trust their interior scoring in that series against the Spurs. Granted,
Sure,
they had a
sure.
lot of opportunities getting past the Suns because they don't really have a true rim protector there in the desert. Going up against Wemby now with him sitting in the post, it's going to change a lot of your schemes when you try to drive, a lot more kick-out opportunities. It's going to be up to Jeremy Grant, Tumani Kamara, maybe even Scoot Henderson to knock down some perimeter shots to keep Portland in games.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what Portland has in store as far as how to bring Wemby out from under the basket and kind of play around that, because Wemby is as versatile as we've ever seen a big man. He can close out a 3-point shooter. He can close out to the rim real quick. So he's elite. He's fantastic. He's quick. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Over on the Eastern Conference, as we mentioned, the Sixers defeated the Orlando Magic the other night. Orlando looks like a team just in disarray for much of that game. Desmond Bane was just really the only scorer who can get anything going. Franz Wagner still, I think, coming back from his injury that he missed significant time with. But this is also a Sixers team playing without Joel Embiid for the foreseeable future as he recovers from an appendectomy. Tyrese Maxey was fantastic. VJ Edgecombe was big for them in his first ever real playoff kind of game. What did you make of the Sixers' victory over the Magic the other night?
Well, I'm going to keep it pretty short on this one. As soon as I saw Andre Drummond pulling up from deep and nailing threes, I knew that game was over and that the 76ers were going to take that one. And I do like the 76ers heading into a series against the Celtics. I'm not saying that I think they're going to win, but these two teams have a lot of history with one another. Joel Embiid is probably about a week and a half from being back from his appendectomy, so he'll be playing in this series once he gets healthy and gets the clearance. You still got Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George, I think, has been playing really well since he came back from suspension. He looks healthy for once, so that's good to see as well. And so I think that the 76ers, they can give the Celtics a run for their money. Again, I don't think that they're going to beat the Celtics, but just how you feel about Portland maybe giving the Spurs a little bit of a gamble, I think that we could see 6 or 7 games with the Celtics and 76ers, especially if Embiid is healthy and can be on the court.
Before we move on to the next one, I do want to point out some of the chats. This is the Spurs' first time in the playoffs in like 30 years without Greg Popovich. Obviously, a significant playoff riser at the coaching position. I am curious to see that part too as well. How does Mitch Johnson react to different things, different adversity, adjustments, and all that stuff? So that'll be a very fun thing to monitor. On the Sixers side, I think I don't know that they can really take the series from Boston. Boston, I think, has looked fantastic since Tatum has returned. I think a lot of it does depend on the health of Jaylen Brown, who's missed a couple games due to some minor nagging injuries. But again, you just want to make sure that he's not dealing with anything long term and he's able to play. Because if he is, he played like an MVP candidate this year, and that's just a guy who was really hard to stop. And you throw in Jason Tatum in the fold. I mean, the confidence everyone on that team has, from Baylor Shireman to Sam Hauser to Peyton Pritchard, Nikola Vucevic is back, so they have a squad there, and so I think the Sixers will definitely need Joel Embiid. They'll need Paul George to be at his absolute best. I think when he came back from his suspension, he was elite. His play has dropped off a little bit, as to be expected, but if they're to win this series or make this series competitive, Paul George needs to be some of the Paul George that we've seen in prior years. Tyrese Maxey, I don't think you have to worry about. But PG, I think, is the big guy there. And then VJ Edgecombe, I'm curious to see what he can do at his rookie, first real playoff experience here. He's been fun all year, and I expect him to play really well. He has a game that I think flows well for the type of playoff atmosphere, but you never know how a guy's going to react in these situations.
If there's one team coming out of the play-in tournament that I think can pull off an upset, I think this is the matchup to watch. I think that's going to be very, very interesting. and I wouldn't be shocked if it's 2-2 heading into Game 5.
Celtics Sixers 2-2 heading into Game 5. All right. Moving on to our next play-in scenario, play-in conversation. The Phoenix Suns and Golden State Warriors. This is a fun matchup. I mean, this one is hard to predict because
Dillon Brooks versus Draymond Green.
yeah, but not only that. I mean, this is a Warriors team that last night when they played the Clippers, their starting lineup had played 11 minutes together, 11 total minutes, and they were out there playing like they had been together all year. I mean, Guy Santos and Al Horford in the first half. That I don't want to say the moment looked too big for them, but they missed some shots, and the Warriors were getting outscored when they were on the floor. And then in the second half, I think Al Horford had all 4 of his 3-pointers in the fourth quarter. Guy Santos made big shot after big shot. Draymond was a defensive menace. I mean, he showed that he still got it at his age. And then Steph Curry, as Darius Garland said post game, 30 did what 30 does. And so Phoenix probably, to me, they kind of blew that game against Portland. Again, up 13 with about 7 minutes left, 11 with about 5.5 left. That was their chance, especially to avoid the Thunder. I'm not really sure what to make of Phoenix because, Jalen Green had a big game. I think he had 35 points, but their best player is Devin Booker. And it feels like the ball should be in his hands more often than not. And so I just don't know what kind of Suns team I'm going to get here. They also heavily rely on their three-point shot. They go small sometimes with, Royce O'Neal at the 4, at the 5 on rare occasions. But I just don't know what to make of Phoenix. So I'll ask you, what are you kind of looking at with this series? What are some X factors, or what are you looking for in this Suns Warriors? Not series; it's a one-game series. So what are you looking for in this one game?
I think for the first time in weeks, we actually saw the Warriors playing stress-free, and we saw their offense just flowing. And it has a lot to do with the injuries and guys being back, especially number 30, because when that guy's on the court, anything's possible for the Warriors. But I think that when you look at the Suns, they really needed to beat Portland for a mentality standpoint. And now you're going into a do-or-die scenario, your second straight game on your home floor, knowing that if you lose, you're not going to be in the playoffs after all the success that you found heading into the All-Star break. I just feel like that the Warriors are playing with house money at this point, where they know what's at stake and they know that there's pressure on them, but they're kind of playing like there is no pressure, and they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, like they have something to prove. And with the Suns, I don't see that right now. I see guys that look lackadaisical, guys that are out of rhythm, and with Dillon Brooks not really finding his groove on offense and Jalen Green still trying to work his way back, I think that we're going to see a very aggressive Warriors team. And if the Suns are playing from behind, I think that that's just going to be very advantageous to the Warriors, because as we've seen, the Warriors have been at their best in the fourth quarter, and it's taken some heroic efforts to come back in games and win. And so if they can have a lead in the second half, I think it'll be really reminiscent for them of the Warriors in recent years, where we've seen them dominate in the second half of game.
I think another thing worth mentioning is Grayson Allen did not play in the first playing game due to hamstring injury. This is a guy who started the year as arguably Phoenix's first or second best playmaker. I know Devin Booker's obviously their best scorer, but being a point guard has had his ups and downs for him. But Grayson Allen was playing as an elite level as a playmaker for them. So him not playing, I think, is a huge loss, both offensively, obviously defensively, what he's able to bring as a defender. So that's just a big loss for them. And then Dillon Brooks, I think he's just 5 or maybe 7 games back from his fractured hand, and so does he have his rhythm? I mean, that's kind of the difficulty with a team like this that has so many scores. Not to bring up the old "there's only one ball" thing, but Devin Booker, I feel like, doesn't really need the ball to be find his rhythm. But a guy like Jalen Green, I think, does. A guy like Dillon Brooks, he's been more on ball this year, probably does. Grayson Allen probably does. So I'm just, I think their only low maintenance type of guy out here is really like Royce O'Neal. He can be a versatile defender, a shooter for them. Mark Williams also just came back from injury, I believe. He had a foot injury and he just came back from it. So, this Suns team has everything on paper to be a really good team. I just don't know if they have the rhythm or what to kind of get through this. And again, they might come out and have a hot shooting night. That's all you need in these scenarios, and blow the Warriors out. You never know. I think the way Jalen Green played, if he can feel good but play within the team and have everyone go play well, that's great for them. They can get through it. But the game we watched of the Warriors the other night, Draymond was talking about how Draymond and Steph the other night were talking about how they hadn't played together for months, but they had a quick little eye signal or a word that he said, and Draymond was like, "All right, we're in this play." And GP Gary Payton too was like, "All right, we know we're going here," and they just like. It's like they missed no time together. It's like no time was missed, and they were just back to the old running around, get Steph the ball, and it worked. He was fantastic the other night. So, um, yeah, I really don't know what to make of this one. I do think the momentum is a real thing, and the Warriors feeling good. Steve Kerr the other night, we'll touch on it in a bit, but said this for one night we were champions, and I think that momentum is going to be a very real thing heading into this do or die game against the Suns.
Yeah, I completely agree, and we'll just touch on the last play-in game that's going to happen in the Eastern Conference. Real quick thoughts on this one. I think that Charlotte has this. I think that Orlando is a freight train going off the tracks. You can see it in the distance where the bridge has not been built yet. This train is going 80 miles an hour, and it's just going to go crashing into the ravine. That's where the Magic are at right now. They're completely dysfunctional. They're going to undergo 99% sure at this point that Jamal Mosley is going to be out as head coach of the Magic, and so everything is just kind of spiraling out of control for them. Meanwhile, you have a young Hornets team, again, playing with house money. They have really nothing to lose at this point. I think that Jalen Suggs and the Magic are going to focus a lot on taking LaMelo Ball out of the game, and I think that this year's Rookie of the Year, Concanipple, is really going to step up in this one.
I think when Orlando traded for Desmond Bane, they expected to be a contender. I mean, they thought that was the missing piece for them alongside Paolo Banchero, alongside Franz Wagner. And honestly, on paper, that their core isn't bad. They have a good, solid core. They have the point guard, offensively and defensively, in Jalen Suggs and Anthony Black. Like, they've all shown signs of being, potentially a really good team. And so, just the way they've struggled has been interesting. It really does feel like at this point it's a bit more of a coaching situation. Franz Wagner has missed a lot of time this season with injury. I think Desmond Bane was the only real healthy star. I think Paolo has gone through his ups and downs. He's really, I think, still early. A lot of time for him to continue developing, but it seems to be like he's hit a bit of a wall as far as developing goes. I think there was a certain trajectory we saw for him, and maybe that's slowed down a little bit. So maybe he has to find a way to develop his game, get the jump shot going, get more of the off the dribble game going. But he's been fantastic. But I feel like they need more out of Paolo. They need more out of him from an efficiency standpoint, from a playmaking standpoint. They need a lot of it. So, and to top it all off, I mean, Memphis, if I have this correct, Memphis is getting, I believe, a first round pick from Orlando in this deal. So if the Magic miss the playoffs, I don't know if it's their pick or if it's Phoenix's pick, but there's a good pick heading towards Memphis from the Desmond Bane trade. So this has not gone the way Orlando has hoped. And in these situations, usually someone is labeled a scapegoat. More often than not, it is the coach. I think Jamal Mosley, while he's had his positives and his ups, kind of bringing this Magic team to where they are, they've also seemed to hit a bit of a wall there. We've seen some issues with coaches. We've heard some rumors out there, and usually where there's smoke, there's fire. And so it appears like Mosley is probably coaching his last game on Friday night. I'm with you. I think Charlotte, again, a team riding momentum. They've been playing well the second half of the season. And we'll see another big Kobe White game. He's been fantastic. And I think we'll see Concanipple bounce back too. I think he obviously was benched, one, due to how he was struggling, but two, due to how well Kobe White and some of the other guys were playing together. I think we'll see them. We'll see Con bounce back. And the Charlotte team just feels like a team that is ready for that next step. And so I think we'll see that happen on Friday night. Anything to add before we move on, Brett? Okay, we have our next one. The Warriors. The nostalgic Warriors, I should say. Yesterday felt like a throwback Warriors game. Being in the arena for that was so a group of us on the beat. It's funny. When I talked to Warriors people the last couple of days, all of them were a little bit pessimistic. They're like, "Well, we don't know if the Warriors can get over the hump and beat the Clippers." And all of the Clippers people I talked to were like, "Well, we don't think the Clippers can get over the hump and beat the Warriors." So everyone's kind of like cautiously pessimistic. And the script for this game, I felt like, and I told a couple of my friends this, working the beat, was The Clippers had to be up like 15 points entering the fourth quarter because Steph Curry in a fourth quarter road elimination game. This is a guy who was 10-5 in elimination games, averaging 28, 7, and 6. Um, you need like a 15-point cushion because that man is going to go off. That's exactly what happened. But he had help. Al Horford had 4 fourth quarter 3-pointers. Guy Santos hit a couple of massive 3-pointers. Kristaps Porzingis had 20 points. I believe he had a couple big threes, a putback dunk. That was the most complete team Warriors effort we've seen in quite some time, at least this season, given the injuries they've dealt with. I'm almost out of words because I haven't even mentioned Draymond Green. I mean, the job that, Draymond made sure to mention that it was a team effort, and it was a team effort. They doubled Kawhi quite a bit. They blitzed him, got the ball out of his hands, didn't let him get it again. But the job that Draymond did in that game, especially in the second half on Kawhi Leonard, I mean, Kawhi Leonard said it was almost impossible to get a shot off. That was just throwback Draymond, and I was amazed to watch that. I mean, I'm curious to see what you took away from that game watching from home, but like to me in the arena, that was just a phenomenal game to watch.
I think that there's a few things to touch on, and you mentioned them. I think that Al Horford got in a groove, and him knocking down those shots was huge for the Warriors because it was in big moments. There was one right after a Benedict Mathurin three that looked like all the momentum was going to the Clippers. Then Al Horford hit a shot late in the shot clock. Then he did it again on back-to-back possessions on a broken play where they can't get Steph the ball. They're looking for somebody to shoot, and they just find Al Horford, and he knocks down a tough contested three. So those 4 threes were huge for the Warriors. Obviously, Draymond Green's defense, I think that that's really the story of the game. And to be honest, I think that you rank it, Draymond's defense 1, Horford's shot making 2, and then Curry with all his heroics. Granted, it was some of the best shots that you could ever see. He was falling to his left, out of bounds, not even looking at the rim, and he hit that signature 3 that he seems to hit in these clutch games all the times. And that's the third thing that you could talk about for why the Warriors won this game. So going back to Draymond, I think that it just goes to show all the talk out there of, oh, he's not a best defensive player and Draymond's regressed this year, which he has based on the numbers, and he is older. You have to give him that. But in big moments, in big games, and in the playoffs, this guy constantly delivers. He did it last year against the Houston Rockets, and he did so against the Minnesota Timberwolves as well. They just didn't have enough firepower to get past them in the playoffs last year. But Draymond, in this kind of scenario, he lives for this. He talks all season about wanting to get to the postseason and contend for another championship. And that's why he's given maximum effort. That's why we saw him lock down Kawhi Leonard and make him look like nothing more than a bench player in this league. I thought that holding him to, what was it, like 2 or 4 points in the fourth quarter, it was just absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, 2 points in the fourth quarter. Kawhi Leonard in the second half had 7 total points and 5 turnovers. It's the first time he's ever had a half with less than 7 points and 5 turnovers. So just a phenomenal defensive game. Steph Curry had 8 points at the half. Really turned it up. I think he had 16 points in the third quarter, 27 in the second half, including a couple of really big ones that, the crowd got going. I mean, for a good portion of that game, it felt like it was about 70-30 Clippers fans, or maybe like 60-40 Clippers fans, but the Warriors fans were just loud. You know how loud they get with their Warriors chant or whatever. They were just loud. Every big response that they had, and that's what impressed me the most actually is the resilience and the response that the Warriors had to every single mini run the Clippers put together. Like, they went up 11 several times in that game, up 13 in the fourth quarter, and it was either Al Horford or Guy Santos or Steph. They got Steph open, big defensive stop. Like, it was impressive. And Draymond, I do need to add, Draymond was pretty sick last couple of days. He sounded sick at practice the day before. He looked sick and was apparently under the weather yesterday. You could tell he sounded under the weather after the game too. But that guy powered through quite a bit in order to win that game for the Warriors. And so, that was a fantastic game. Truly, just when you hear Steph Curry's 38, you really don't take these for granted. But being able to watch that in person was almost leaves you speechless, because you're like, damn, this guy did it again on the biggest stage in a single elimination game. You knew what the potential was, and he came out and he did it again. It just, you run out of words to describe that. Truly, it's just you knew what would happen, you knew what could happen, and it did happen, and it was just phenomenal to watch. That brings us to our next topic, which is an off-season intel piece, but like we'll start with a bit of the Clippers side. I think before we go to Miami's, obviously the Clippers are in a bit of a weird situation here. They traded James Harden and Ivica Zubac at the trade deadline. The future of Kawhi Leonard certainly appears up in the air, given the fact that he wants to be in a winner. This is, I believe, the first time he's ever failed to make the playoffs in his career when he's been healthy. First time he's ever missed the playoffs, and so will he? I know he has 1 year left on his deal, and the Clippers have historically, over the last several years, they've wanted to prioritize the 26 and 27 free agency, max cap space, all that. Will they be willing to offer him an extension? Does he want an extension? Does he want to stay? I think there's a lot of questions and conversations to be had. But you have a report on a team that is interested in Kawhi Leonard this summer, correct?
Yeah, we released our intel piece the other day about the Miami Heat as soon as they were eliminated from the postseason. You can check that out on ClutchPoints, talking about everything and anything to deal with the Heat. And the biggest thing is the trade talks of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kawhi Leonard, two guys that have been linked to the Miami Heat in recent years. We've been told here at ClutchPoints that Giannis will remain a priority for them heading into the offseason. They're willing to put everything on the table besides Bam Adebayo to get a deal done. What that leaves the Heat with, that's a completely separate topic of discussion, but that goes to show you how aggressive Pat Riley's going to be. What will happen at the trade deadline and them failing to get a deal done for Giannis, it's not going to go away. They're going to try everything they can to make that a reality this offseason, and if the Bucks still say no, and if Giannis remains there or goes somewhere else, plan 1B is to go after Kawhi Leonard, we are told. And so it goes to show the market that Kawhi is going to have as well. The Heat aren't just the only team that's going to pursue him. We've heard rumors about the Warriors. We've heard rumors about the Minnesota Timberwolves making a late run for Kawhi Leonard at the trade deadline. So there's going to be a lot of teams in the mix here. And obviously what happens with that aspiration case and whether or not his contract is voided, that's going to play a big factor in Kawhi's availability this offseason. But those are the two main trade targets for the Heat. They're going to be going big game hunting on the trade market, which then leads to questions about Tyler Herro's future with the organization. Him versus Norman Powell. Who are they going to potentially keep? Because Herro's entering the final year of his contract. Norman Powell is an unrestricted free agent. They could theoretically keep them both, but they're going to run into cap problems. And quite honestly, watching them both on the court together this season, it just didn't work out whatsoever. So the Heat have some major decisions to make. And with Herro being involved in those trade talks for Giannis at the trade deadline, I think it's very telling what Pat Riley and this organization is thinking right now.
There's a number of things to address with that, though. Start with one. I think teams, you've reported this, I think we've both heard this, that teams have been reluctant to trade for Tyler Herro because of the fear of a big contract extension. Has he earned it? Remains to be seen, but he's going to command a big contract multiple years. And in this current NBA landscape with a lot of turnover and teams having to pivot from certain situations, and honestly, just seeing what happened with the Bucks and Miles Turner, that looks like one of the worst contracts we've seen in recent history. It's fair to wonder who would trade for Tyler Herro with the intention of signing him to a long-term contract. Herro is good. He's really good. Is he a superstar level player? I don't think he's gotten to that stage, but he's going to command that type of money, and so I'm curious to see what happens there. Another factor in what you mentioned, I think while teams will want to pursue Kawhi Leonard, I think Kawhi has been very comfortable being at home. LA is home for him. His kids have gone to school here. Like there's a sense of comfort, and also I think this is also a guy who values continuity, being able to not just him but the entire team. From what I talked to yesterday, valuing continuity and being able to bring back the same core and build on something. This is a team that was rebuilt in February and was given 2 months with injuries to figure it out and get it right on the fly. And so the ability to have a training camp is underrated. The ability to have a healthy offseason is underrated. And I think you saw this is the first healthy offseason Kawhi had. And he made a concerted effort to be more aggressive this year. We saw career highs from points, career highs in three-pointers made, the highest three-point rate of his career, and the efficiency didn't drop off. And so this is a guy who's still very capable of playing at a high level, but he does need, I think, a couple more pieces around him, especially at his age. So while he is comfortable in LA, I think he will want to put apply some type of pressure on this team to, hey, what can you do around me to help us improve? Darius is good. He's a little injury prone right now, dealing with some toe injuries. So can he get healthy? What about around him? Can we get another big wing? Can we get a more mobile big man? I mean, if they had to play small, John Collins is a free agent for them this year. That's a big question mark. What are they going to do with him at the 4 position? Benedict Mathurin is entering restricted free agency as his rookie deal comes to an end here. Like, there's a lot of questions here, and so will all those guys be back? Will they not? I mean, I think it depends on who the Clippers can go out and get. And I think Kawhi. It's worth mentioning that Kawhi and the Clippers have had a great relationship. There's been no, you know, ill, and there's no bad blood with anything with the trade at the deadline. Like, everything's been they've worked together on everything, and so I expect that to continue. They will have good conversations and discussions entering this summer, and we'll kind of see what happens. But I know Kawhi is comfortable being here, and I'm sure he would love to stay. But I think winning is his ultimate priority at this point.
And
At 35 years of age.
going back to Tyler Hero real quick, other pieces of intel that we had in our intel story that I actually did not mention when we were talking about Tyler Hero before, 2 teams did reach out to the Miami Heat at the trade deadline, and it kind of builds off your idea, Tomer, of what we heard of teams not really being interested in Hero. So this was a little notable to kind of take tabs on it and get some intel on. 2 teams, one in the Eastern Conference, one in the West, reached out to the Heat while they were actively talking with the Bucks about a potential Giannis trade, whether or not they would have been an extension of it to get Tyler Hero and include other pieces. But those 2 teams, one in the East was the Chicago Bulls, a team that was going through a rebuild and looking for buy low opportunities. I'm told that they were looking to flip the expiring contracts of Anthony Simons and Colin Sexton, along with some protected picks to get Tyler Hero. That ultimately did not happen, and the Heat were not willing to relinquish him because of their talks for Giannis. And then the team in the West, I thought was a really interesting one as well, the Sacramento Kings, a team that is very much at the bottom of the standings. They have a long road ahead of them, and they're a team that has trouble luring stars in free agency. Their only way to really do so is either through the draft or through trades. And so to get a young guy like Tyler Hero would have made a lot of sense for them, looking at the contracts of DeMar DeRozan, Dennis Schroeder, Malik Monk, Zach LaVine, guys that the Kings are most likely going to be looking to move off of in the offseason. They already moved off of Schroeder at the trade deadline, traded him to the Cleveland Cavaliers in that Keon Ellis deal. And so that kind of gives you a thought of, obviously the Bulls heading in a new direction now with new leadership coming in, but kind of a sense of what the Kings are going to be looking to do. They're going to be looking to be very opportunistic on the trade market, and most importantly, looking to use some of these high salaries to retool their roster.
A lot will happen as soon as the draft lottery. Discussions will be had, I will say, as soon as the draft lottery finishes and everyone knows where they will be selecting. Feels like, I mean, we've heard a lot, but it feels like this is going to be one of those years where once the draft lottery is set, teams can start maneuvering and figuring out what they want to do, whether it's making a run for a title, making a run for a young star in the draft. It's going to be a very interesting couple of months here. Like your shirt says, but there is no offseason. Moving on to our final topic.
For those
of the
who
day.
did not see, there is no offseason.
There you go. Moving on to our final topic of the day. The coaching carousel. We touched on it lightly last week. And shortly after, the Milwaukee Bucks have parted ways with Doc Rivers. We mentioned earlier in this show, but Jamal Mosley and the Orlando Magic, barring a random deep playoff run out of nowhere, they appear to be poised to move on from Jamal Mosley. That seems to be brewing there for quite a bit of time. Are there any other coaches that we can foresee maybe being on the hot seat right now as the playoffs get underway and teams are starting to live with where they will be for the summer?
Well, let's touch on some names for Doc Rivers real quick of potential replacement candidates. We have Mike Scott of Hoops Hype has reported Darvin Ham, who is an assistant under Doc Rivers. You have Mark Stein reporting that Taylor Jenkins, former Memphis Grizzlies reporter, is in the mix. And we've reported here at ClutchPoints that both Chris Quinn, an assistant for the Miami Heat, and Micah Nori, an assistant for the Minnesota Timberwolves, will be considered for this position. And there's going to be a lot of other names that come up as well. So just initial thoughts of where the Bucks are at there. Then obviously the Orlando Magic, it's almost a given at this point that Jamal Mosley will be replaced. And we've heard Taylor Jenkins' name come up there as well. And just some other names. Billy Donovan is an interesting name to keep tabs on there, and his future with the Chicago Bulls being uncertain, even though they really want him to stay, but he doesn't know what he wants for his immediate future. So some names to keep some tabs on in this coaching carousel. Obviously, other positions around the league that will not be open now after being discussed in some rumors lately. The Washington Wizards will not be moving off of Brian Keefe. We reported a week ago that it was looking very slim that he would be fired. All intentions were to bring him back, and he has a close relationship with that front office. So no surprises there that Keefe will be back with the Wizards. And Doug Christie as well. He's built a strong relationship with Scott Perry, who's in charge of the Kings front office. They want to give him a shot, and they think that this year just wasn't fair to evaluate him on a one-year basis, given the injury troubles that they had and some internal struggles with the way that their roster was constructed. So two guys that were rumored to maybe be on the coaching carousel, they're completely off of it. And I think another guy that we may be able to take off of as well is a potential coaching change in Portland. I've heard that there's backing for Tiago Splitter from the locker room to be their head coach moving forward. They just won the 7th seed in the West, and if they give the Spurs a run for their money, like you predicted, Tomer, there's going to be some serious talk about Tiago Splitter becoming the full-time head coach there. So just some quick updates on the coaching carousel as a whole.
One guy I think hasn't been mentioned of late, and I think will heavily depend on their playoff success, is Rockets coach Ime Udoka. I think the Rockets have had ups and downs this year. They ultimately, what did they finish? The 5 seed, I believe, or the 5 seed. They'll take on the Lakers in the 4-5 matchup. I'm very curious to see what the Rockets do there, because if they can somehow put it together, like they should beat the Lakers. They should beat the Lakers, who will be without Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic, I believe, for the whole series. I don't imagine they'll be healthy enough to return.
Well, the NBA was very favorable with one series in particular with the way that the schedule is constructed, and they gave them the max days off. So if there's any series in which Luka and Reeves could potentially return by the end, it's definitely this one, because I think that they have it spanning like 2.5 weeks.
I think everyone kind of balances it out over the course of a series, doesn't it? The Thunder, I know, got.
I was looking at the schedules. There's some teams that play every other day, and I look at the Lakers, Rockets, and it's like, oh, you get 2 days off here, 3 days off here, and it's just like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Brett calling it like it is. The Rockets should be able to get past the Lakers, and if they do that, their second round matchup, we'll see what happens there. But I'm very curious to see what the Rockets do with Ime Udoka, because he's had his ups and downs. I think a few more downs of late, but this is a team playing without Steven Adams, playing without Fred VanVleet, like two players who were supposed to be key figures in their rotation and how they are supposed to play moving forward. I mean, Steven Adams was just a focal point of what they did last year to the Warriors and nearly beat them in 7. Fred VanVleet, we know what he's capable of doing. So I'm very curious to see what the Rockets end up doing. I think Ime Udoka was a name to be mentioned. I'm not sure he's going to be on that hot seat like maybe some people were saying he would a few weeks or a few months ago. But that's an interesting one. Do you have any insight into the Rocket situation?
I think it's certainly a situation to watch. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of smoke there right now, and it's not like he's on the hot seat, but I wouldn't say that his job security is 100% safe either, because they did lose as a 2 seed last year. Obviously, they fell to the 5 seed this year, and how they perform in this series against the Lakers. If they do lose that series, there's going to be some growing skepticism about if Ime Udoka is the right guy moving forward. And obviously, with Kevin Durant being there, is that the leader that he wants on the sideline? So there's going to be a lot of discussions going on, obviously, for Houston. But right now, the focus is playing the Lakers, trying to go on whatever deep postseason run they can. And then after that, that's when all this will start being discussed. But he's certainly a guy, and we listed it in our coaching carousel update last week, our intel story. He was not one of those 12, 15 guys that we listed as being completely safe and off limits this offseason. Could we see a change? It's possible. Is it likely? Probably not right now, but definitely something to monitor.
Any other insight before we wrap up here as far as coaches who could be looking at new positions, any positions opening, anything else before we wrap up?
I don't think it's going to be as eventful of a coaching carousel as we've seen in years past. I think that there's 5, 6, maybe 7 places that we could see changes. But again, the Milwaukee Bucks, it's going to be a very interesting job based on what happens with Giannis this offseason. And then the Orlando Magic, what they ultimately decide to do with Jamal Mosley and potential replacements there. The Portland job, I think, is going to be highly sought out by some guys. But again, I think that Tiago Splitter has proven to be the right guy for this team. He's a young coach that really fits in this locker room and fits well with the veterans that they have, and he has the backing from them. So I think that it's not going to be as eventful of a coaching carousel as we've seen in years past, but I do think that there's going to be at least 1 to 2 surprises that we weren't expecting.
Well, the one thing you shouldn't be surprised by is we are going to be back next Thursday with another Clutch Scoops episode. We also will have a bunch of shorts and video content going up throughout the week on our YouTube channel, so be sure to tune into that. That's our show for today. Thank you guys for joining. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, for chiming in. Playoffs are here. Meaningful basketball is here, and we're ready for
Not
it.
going to see
Everyone tune
tanking
in.
over the next few weeks, that's for sure.
I don't want to hear tanking. I don't want to hear ratings. I don't want to hear any of that BS. Just watch and enjoy the games. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate it. Tomer Azarly, Brett Siegel right there. Make sure you like, subscribe on YouTube, Clutch Scoops, and yeah, we'll see you guys next week.